Hi there. Welcome to episode 198 of Fresh Air at 5. This is a short but sweet episode as it takes place over the Christmas holidays of 2024 and into the new year of 2025. I listened to a few episodes, but more importantly, I was able to get the renovation in our basement suite finished, and I connected with friends at the very end of the week. Take a listen, be inspired, and thanks for being here. Enjoy episode 198 of Fresh Air at 5.
I'm Jessica Peresta, host of the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey PLN, Merry Christmas to you. It is Christmas Eve, so not Christmas yet, but today's Christmas Eve, and it's early in the morning. I'm down in the basement suite, still working on the reno. It's coming along. We got the kitchen almost installed, bedroom's done. Other things are nearly done, so I'm thankful for that. This morning I listened to the House of Ed Tech as we had the 2024 House of Ed Tech Smackdown. I was a contributor to that podcast episode with my content that I've shared from Adobe Express and Microsoft Teams. We had Tony Vincent, Stephanie Howell, Noah, Joe, Trish, Martin, and Derek, and Chris, as they all shared content and their thoughts about different apps that they've used over the years. Great to listen, great summary, highlight of my Christmas, actually, seriously, because I've been listening to this now for probably 6 or 7 years. Enjoyed it very much. All right, without further ado, that's it for right today. We'll talk to you soon. Hey PLN, it's January 2, 2025. It's already the new year, and the last you heard from me was back on the 23rd of December as I was in my basement suite, working on the basement suite, and still ticking away at that project that was going on, and we successfully got it completed. So I'm out tonight after getting some rest, and all of the work that has gone into that renovation. It turned out sweet. We're really happy with it. We have our tenant already living in it. So, yes, this is me getting some fresh air at almost 10 p.m. On Thursday, January 2nd. All right, I'm excited about Content Creators Lunch tomorrow as I go into Vancouver to meet with Tim Cavey and Tom Schimmer and Nat Verdebrasso and others. We'll talk to you soon. I'm coming right back with something to say. Okay, bye. All right, one more thing for January 2, 2025. I listened to episode 180 of the EdTech Throwdown with Eric Geis and Nick Johnson. Gents, happy New Year to you. And thanks for the shout out on your recent episode as you're talking about Steph and Joe on the Go as a resource with Stephanie Howell. And I don't know Joe. I'm not sure who the Joe is, but I have to listen now. So I'm going to go check that out because you talked about it. You guys talked about some EdTech resources. That was them, and Canva, the packaged lessons that are already there. You talked about EdTech tools, Snorkel, Notebook, LM by Google. Talked about Padlet, Sandbox, and one more. Can't remember. You'll have to check the show notes for this one and the hot topics that they are talking about. I'm coming back because I got something to say about the hot topic that you guys brought up. Okay, hang on. I'll be right back. One more thing for January 2, 2025, episode 180, the EdTech Throwdown. Eric and Nick, as they talked about the hot topics of AI, is here and how EdTech in the past year has grown a lot because of AI and the incorporation of AI into these tools. So that is fantastic. It's there. It's around us. It's all over the place. I'm seeing it in my iPhone. I'm seeing it in all the tools that I use, and I do dig it. I like it. But we have to be cautious and critical thinking about it. And that gets into Eric's point about cheaters and about citing AI sources as students use these tools. I'm teaching my students in middle school, when they use an AI generated image, they got to say so. If you look in my podcast show notes, you'll see that Fresh Air at 5, I talk about the AI tool that I use to generate some of the cover art. Hang on, I'll be right back. One more thing for January 2, 2025, following up on episode 180 of the EdTech Throwdown with Eric and Nick. And, talking about cheating and about students not citing their work, that AI is around and that us teachers, we are using it, to solve some problems, do some work for us. And I talk about this whenever I'm doing presentations and talking about the work that I do in my class, that I have used AI to generate some content that I need to then edit and work through so that it is not just me spitting out something that AI has done. I work with my students on trying to get them to cite that they use Adobe Express AI image generators to create some of the content that they work on. So that's really important. Thanks, Nick and Eric, for your thoughts on that. Okay. The last thing for January 2, 2025. All right, it's been awesome to get out and get some fresh air. I'm super psyched about getting some fresh air. I see Orion in the sky at night now, and Orion will be set by the time it is morning. I might get out for a walk tomorrow morning, but maybe I'm also going to listen to podcasts as I drive into Vancouver to meet with the crew for lunch. So, without further ado, I'm going to say, hey, good night to you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you listening. And yes, this is the Merry New Year episode of Fresh Air at 5. Because, like I said last week, or 2 weeks ago, that I'm not sure if I was going to record over winter break, but I have definitely done a smidge, and here we are at the end of winter break. 4 days until school starts. Okay, bye. Talk to you soon. Hey PLN, good morning, January 3, 2025. Just driving into Content Creators Lunch in Vancouver with my crew and looking forward to having lunch with them. As I'm driving, I listen to the Easy Ed Tech podcast with Monica Burns as Monica brings us episode 300. Congratulations, Monica. Super exciting that you have hit 300 episodes of your regular Tuesday dropped podcast. So exciting. I really appreciate hearing you talk about ed tech, talking about techniques and pedagogy and just different ways that we can creatively use ed tech in our spaces. This episode is called 13 Things I've Learned from Recording 300 Episodes, and you go over things like consistency, keep it small, keep it simple, and keep on learning. Great things to listen to. Take a listen, people. Happy 300. One more thing for January 3, 2025, episode 26 of Teaching Champions host that has his other podcast called X Factor Level Up Your Mental Game, Brian Martin. He brings us an episode about, keeping your mental game going. And he talks about Rudyard Kipling's poem called If, which is about if all these things are going to happen. Basically, what is your response? You know, how do we respond to success or failure or disaster or winning or anything that happens to us? And that is the most important thing. So Brian, that's what I got out of that poem, is that my response is really, really important. So that response being either too prideful or too humble or things like that. And so that's important. So take a listen, episode 26, X Factor. Another one more thing for January 3, 2025. I'm downtown now, and I'm about to pick up a teapot for my wife at the store behind me. And so as I was driving in, I listened to the 2P Principles podcast with Kevin Jost and Jason Paris, as they bring us episode 108 that you should listen to. This is their kickoff into 2025. So exciting to hear their thoughts about staying well. You know, our mental health is so important and our well-being is so important. They give us about 9 different things that we could consider as we move forward into 2025, taking care of ourselves as leaders. Whether you're a principal actually, or just a leader, a dad even, how can you stay sharp as a leader? So take a listen to this. They talk about consistency in doing things regularly every day. They talk about physical health and digital breaks. Check it out. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right, the last thing for December, no, it's January 3, 2025. I just left Content Creators Lunch. We had Phil Stringer, Tim Cavey, Lauren McLean, Livia Chan, Natalie Vetterbasso, and Tom Schimmer together with me for lunch. And it was fantastic. 2.5 hours of talking, sharing stories, encouraging one another, and just watching our content creation journey. So, yeah, fantastic. A highlight of my Christmas break it is, and it typically is as we get together. We do this 2 or 3 times a year, so I'm thankful for my crew that we just had lunch with. All right, that's all I got. I'm headed to IKEA now for my daughter as I'm leaving Vancouver. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself, because you are worth it.